Good morning, everyone. This is John, your host on the Prepared Mind channel. I want to thank everybody for coming over here to take a watch, take a peek, take a look at what's going on around the world. We've got some very interesting news that came out of Donald Trump's lips yesterday. But before I get to that, and I will get to it, I want to say thank you to everybody who was a former sponsor over at John's Scotch and Cigar Funding. I've got a Glenlivet 15-year French Oak Reserve, and I'm going to have to crack this open after this crap that we're going to go over. So what I'm going to do is I am going to open this extremely fine bottle of scotch and have a sip while you listen to what Trump said, and then we are going to dissect it and discuss it.
Today, the United States is designating North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. Should have happened a long time ago, should have happened years ago. In addition to threatening the world by nuclear devastation, North Korea has repeatedly supported acts of international terrorism, including assassinations on foreign soil. As we take this action today, our thoughts turn to Otto Warmbier, wonderful young man, and the countless others so brutally affected by the North Korean oppression. This designation will impose further sanctions and penalties on North Korea and related persons and supports our maximum pressure campaign to isolate the murderous regime that you've all been reading about and in some cases writing about. Tomorrow, the Treasury Department will be announcing an additional sanction, and a very large one, on North Korea, and this will be going on over the next 2 weeks. It'll be the highest level of sanctions by the time it's finished over a 2-week period. The North Korean regime must be lawful. It must end its unlawful nuclear and ballistic missile development and cease all support for international terrorism, which it is not doing.
After watching that again, I get more and more confused about what the hell is going on around here. By the way, this is a terrific scotch. I want to thank everybody. Trump starts off by saying North Korea is a state sponsor of terrorism. The last time I heard language like that, it came from the mouth of President George W. Bush, right? W. And he was talking about Iran, then he was talking about Iraq, and then he was talking about Afghanistan. They went after Iraq. They went into Afghanistan. Turns out that those state sponsors of terrorism didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Now, they tried lying and say they did. They even brought out the venerable, respected General Colin Powell to tell us how they had weapons of mass destruction and that they were state sponsors of terrorism. Right? I've gotten word, right off the news. You could read their lips. Right? The fake news, good old CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, and all. There were no weapons of mass destruction. And when Bush was president, they had no problem saying that. And I have no problem saying anytime anyone is a president and I catch him telling a bunch of bullshit, whether it's Bush or Obama, whether it's Trump, it don't matter. Bullshit is bullshit. And what makes it worse is they have you and I pay the bill, and our children and our grandchildren. I've gotten the word from lowly officers. I've gotten the word from lowly sergeant majors that there were no weapons of mass destruction and that the war basically was bullshit. Yeah, there's bad guys there. Yeah, they got thrown in the fucking meat grinder too. Yes, they did, and people died. Good men died because of state sponsors of terrorism. Now, what bothers me about Trump saying it is, number one, he is now the current president. And he has offered no evidence of this terrorism. Now, to say that it's national security, who gives a rat's ass, right? I don't give a frog's fat ass. Give us the information. If he's done it, let him deny it and explain his way out of it. But don't say there's state sponsor of terrorism, not give us any examples, and then expect us to go, okay, let's do it. Let's sacrifice some more of our Americans out there. Let's spend some more of our national treasure that isn't a treasure anymore. It is now a national debt. So now, this is what kills me, absolutely. Now we're to believe that North Korea is a state sponsor of terrorism, and I'm going to be critical of Trump. Not because I don't like Trump, but because I don't like the way this game is being played. And he very well could be giving everyone the razzle-dazzle and a bunch of shit. But Trump's been president for a year. Are you telling me that he just now learned that North Korea is a state sponsor of terrorism? I don't know at what level they can afford to sponsor it. I really don't. Because North Korea is broke. They can't even buy food for their people. So, I would now want to examine and weigh the difference between state sponsor of terrorism and nuclear testing and firing missiles into international areas and then over sovereign territory. Now, what rises to a level of terrorizing people? Some terrorism? Or how about nuclear annihilation? Right? You know, nuclear devastation is actually a term that Trump used. What's worse? Now, I grew up under the Cold War with the Soviets. The threat of nuclear annihilation, nuclear devastation, right? It was killing the world over and over again if we had a nuclear exchange. He's now threatening North Korea with that. So, I don't know, like I said, what level Kim Jong-un there back in his capital city of Poontang, what level of terror he can afford. But the one about nukes, that one is pretty damn high. And then trying to fire intercontinental ballistic missiles over the top of Japan, right? That's pretty scary. I think that the nuke thing, which we've known about, you've known about, I've known about, the president's known about, everyone's known about it, is far worse than any terrorism. You see, having nuclear bombs isn't terrorism. If that's the case, why isn't Israel a nuclear threat? A nuclear terrorist nation, a nuclear state sponsor of terrorism? What about Russia? What about England? What about France? What about every other sovereign nation that has nukes? Are they state sponsors of terrorism? Well, they have, and this is just a default, threatened to annihilate everybody. That is, if they're attacked, they'll attack back. That is a threat. Whether it's a secondary threat or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everyone's got them. Everyone's nervous. They're all pointing them at each other. I don't like any of this. But now Trump is going to come out, right? He said, this should have happened a long time ago. Really? Really? Then why didn't it? You know, I'm a reasonable kind of guy. Why didn't you, Trump, say something the day after getting briefed? Why have we been pussyfooting around with all this? Seriously. I mean, really, 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 why now? You see, that's what I like to do. I like to ask questions like who, where, what, why, when, and how. But the why, I think, is the most important. Why now? Because the when can be answered. When were they testing nukes? Weeks and months ago. Why are we saying something today? Why? What has happened that all of a sudden this becomes a priority? So here's where I have to speculate, because I'm not a fly on the wall. I don't have anyone inside the Pentagon right now. I don't have anyone inside the White House feeding me information. Something has changed. That's why now. Now, was Trump blackmailed by the the ever scary, hawkish neocons? Has he been gotten to by the New World Order and the Illuminati? Was he told that you're going to continue to push for war with North Korea? Or else? Who knows what it is, but somehow they've gotten to Trump and he's now talking. He's back on the warpath. And it's been a couple weeks since we've heard anything. And Trump has come out the gates with this. Bam! Right? Come out the gates. State sponsor of terror. Where have you been, President? Jesus, so what is going on? Why now? And he said we should have done this years ago, meaning the country, back when Obama was president. Well, I can't speak for why Obama wouldn't do that, right? Other than because he was definitely owned, bought, and paid for long ago. That cocaine snorting, drug using, non-American type guy that became president because he was foisted in power as a great Manchurian candidate, he would do whatever he was told. So why didn't they have Obama declare North Korea a state sponsor of terrorism? So when you ask that question, why, I think it gives us some answers. How about this? They weren't ready for it yet. Otherwise, Obama would do whatever they wanted. And I'll get back to Mr. Obama and state-sponsored terrorism. Because I don't look at human lives in terms of what flag they're living under. I look at human lives in terms of innocence and guilt. And I look at human life in terms of it being human life and valuable. More on that in a minute. Let's go back to, it should have happened years ago. Well, they weren't ready years ago. And I can tell you for the last year, contacts that I know have been warning me we're going to go to war with North Korea. It is being planned right now. They have to get materials. They have to get the training. They have to have the troops ready. They have to have a plan. None of that happens overnight. None of it. It takes time to plan. It takes time to prepare. Just like you and I as preppers. It's taken some time. Got to get the money together. You got to get everything put together. Got to get all your contacts set. All your I's dotted and T's crossed. Right? The government's the same way. Anytime you see something happening, it is not happening right now. It is planned well in advance. And that's not a new thing. It's always been that way. So, back to North Korea. North Korea has threatened the world with nuclear devastation. Nuclear devastation. Now, that's what we're supposed to use as the justification for them being a state sponsor of terrorism? Every country that has nukes makes that threat. Fuck with us, we'll nuke everybody and everything, everywhere for all time. It's not a passive threat. It's not inconsequential to me. But to say that anybody that has nukes is a state sponsor of terrorism means we have to indict ourselves as a nation, the United States. We have to indict Europe, Great Britain, Australia, certainly Israel. Has anyone gone in and inspected Israel's missiles to see if they have nukes, which they say they don't, which we know they do? Right? So this idea that they've threatened the world with nuclear devastation is crazy. Now, I do know, because I know a retired officer in the Army who said we were on the brink, the literal brink of nuclear war with the Soviet Union back in the early 80s when he was commissioned. It was not well known or publicized, but it was known within the circles of people who were dealing with nuclear armament. The Russians were this fucking close to doing it. They were so scared. This is not right after Reagan was elected, but a year or so after that, if I recall the story correctly. This close because they thought we were going to nuke them. We're talking a hair's breadth. That's how close we were. So to claim that North Korea, again, little Kim, just because he seems erratic, he hasn't launched a nuke against anybody. So you can't say that there's a history there. You can say there's a history of the U.S. nuking Japan twice. And a willingness to threaten everyone with it, the same way everyone else has threatened everyone with it. Now, I understand that the little turd in North Korea is just another little political turd. But I don't give him a whole lot more gravitas or respect than any of these other clowns. And by clowns, I mean political leaders. They're clowns to me. It seems like all they do is go to war, make us pay for it, take away our rights, and then tell us, whoops, sorry about that. Every single time it's that order. We're going to war, you're paying for it, whoops, sorry about that. And by the way, you don't have as many rights as you used to. It's bothering the hell out of me. So now let's get down to the next thing that Trump said. He said North Korea has repeatedly supported acts of international terrorism. And he does give us one example. And he's kind of vague about it. He says there are assassinations on foreign soil. Last time I checked, assassinations are done by the CIA, MI6, Mossad, German's version of MI6, the KGB, the GRU, the Kremlin orders it. I'm sure the FBI does. All of these super secret, top secret, super black project companies, because not all of them are governments, some are private companies, commit acts of assassination. But if we're going to start calling that terrorism, then once again, we have to indict everybody who is playing the game of statecraft. Spy versus spy. But to look at stupid little Kim Jong-un and say, that's an international act of terrorism, assassination. Now, who got assassinated? I think it was Kim Jong-un's uncle, his dad's brother, I think. And he died at the hands of a woman who was a hooker, I believe, down in Thailand or the Philippines or something. And I'm strictly going from memory. But they say he was assassinated by Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-un's regime. And I love it when they call a cabinet a regime. See, when they're bad guys, it's a regime. And when they're good guys, it's a cabinet or it's an administration. Once again, it's a choice of terms used to vilify someone else. Now, do I want to give North Korea an inch and have the little pricks take a mile? No. Same with North Korea. I'm sorry. China, Russia, any country. I don't want to give them an inch because they'll take a mile. At the same time, I don't want our government, the United States government, to get an inch on us because they'll ask for an inch and then they'll take a mile, say, whoops, sorry about that, you have less rights, and can you pay for it, by the way? I'm becoming exasperated in my old age because of the double speak and the games that are being played. You see, Trump didn't call all the smart people together. He got on NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, which are the fake news networks. And in turn, they speak to the politically ignorant in America. And they've just broadcasted this bilge out there, and people don't think about it. You are different. I'm definitely different. I'm thinking about what he's saying, going, wait a minute, time out. I've got questions. What do you mean now, after all these years? What do you mean threaten the world? What do you mean international acts of terror? And then give us one example of an assassination, right? It's beyond the pale, once again. So I have to ask the question, why? Why now? Are they ready to go to war? It's a very important question to ask. If they're ready to go to war with North Korea, as I've heard about for the past year, if we're ready to go to war, All Trump has to do is step up and, someone's poking him in the back with a sharp stick saying, time to talk, right? And he says, they're state sponsors of terrorism. What else does he say? You're going to love this. This fucking frosted the cake right here. This is the icing on the cake. Maximum pressure campaign. What the fuck is that about? We're going to do a maximum pressure campaign? Right, to isolate the regime. They are isolated. They've got no exports. They've got no income. North Korea is literally stuck in North Korea. What do you mean isolate them? Everyone knows the guy's an asshole. We're going to isolate them with the maximum pressure campaign? And what is the next sentence to come out of Trump's mouth? The Treasury Department is going to issue sanctions. And within 2 weeks, it's going to be the greatest pressure ever. So I've got to ask the question. It's going to take 2 weeks from today for the Treasury Department to write sanctions? How fucking hard is it? You get a big piece of paper, you get a crayon, you write on there, 100% sanction. Bam, rubber stamp Treasury Department. How hard is it? Absolutely no money in, no goods in, nothing. You get nothing. It's like like Gene Wilder is Willy Wonka. You get nothing. Good day. Right?
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
And since when does the Treasury Department deal with foreign countries in matters of state? The Treasury Department? They're supposed to be printing our currency. They're supposed to be monitoring the monetary system. They're supposed to be in Fort Knox counting the gold to make sure it's all there. And when they're all done, they're supposed to count the gold again. Why is Trump talking about the Treasury Department? It's another big why. Why are they foisted to the front? Is this a secret message? Now, conspiracy time, right? I love Trump. I know he uses every word very carefully. We've got a bunch of crap in this speech, and it's just over a minute. State sponsors of terrorism, nuclear devastation, right? Acts of international terrorism, maximum pressure campaign, and the Treasury Department is issuing sanctions. Maybe I overslept and missed that class where the Treasury Department engages in international affairs of diplomacy. Now, when I talk to you guys and I say there is a failure internationally around the world to deal with things in a diplomatic fashion and we're heading to war and you better get prepared with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. All right, I say that shit. Why? Because diplomacy is failing. When the Treasury Department is called into sanction, what, did they just wake up today and go, oh shit, Mr. President, give us 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks and we'll get it together. The way government works is they have everything set ahead of time. You don't pass anything in Congress unless you have the bill. Everyone knows what's in it. Everyone's willing to sign it, that's willing to sign it. You know it's going to pass. Then you hold the vote. It passes. Business moves on. Because why go through all the fucking exercise and then have a bill in Congress not pass? They have everything done ahead of time. They announce they're going to vote and it's voted on. They know. Now, they're not going to have, Trump's not going to stand up or sit down, as it were, in his chair and say, we're going to sanction them and the Treasury Department's going to do one hell of a beefy job. And in 2 weeks, we'll have it all together. If they have everything done ahead of time, they've got a plan, they know what they're going to do, they've even called it the maximum pressure campaign. Why 2 weeks? What do we know in our head when they give us timelines? Is something going to happen in 2 fucking weeks? 2 weeks! Why 2 weeks? Okay, next. Trump said North Korea needs to start behaving lawfully. He said lawful. Lawful is different than legal. And I know this is parsing and I know this is sophistry, but the word lawful is different than legal or internationally recognized by international law or treaty law. They need to act lawful. It's quite interesting choice of terms. And I don't put anything past any of these people. I don't like what they're doing once again. It has sent my alarm bells, my spidey senses through the roof. Get prepared. I've got to tell you guys, get prepared. If you can, tell everyone that you like, everyone that you know, come to the Prepared Mind at Patreon. Come to the preparedmind.club. Go to the Prepared Mind on YouTube. The videos are still there, my vast libraries of stuff we talk about. Send them there and they can come here to Patreon if they want. Right? To get the straight poop. Right? Because I am into no bullshit commentary. I don't have time to not. I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat the fuck out of something that doesn't make any sense. Right? I kind of think Trump's an interesting cat. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm seeing some sneaky weird shit. Now, unless he's doing a rope-a-dope and he's done it before, right? No matter what, you and I need to be ready. Maybe in 2 weeks something happens, like an international act of terror from a state sponsor of terrorism. We need to be ready. Now, when Trump launched all of those tomahawks into Syria, all of the war hawks like Senator Lindsey the Puss Graham, I don't like that guy, and Senator John McCain, I don't like that little worm either. They went nuts. They were just jumping up and down. Oh boy, here we go. We get to go to war. They were just happy as pigs in shit. Turns out Trump hit basically absolutely nothing with over 50 tomahawks, which were old armament, old technology tomahawks. Everyone thought that the U.S. was going to go in and start a ground war in Syria. I sat right here in this fucking chair, right here, and thought, no way, it's not happening. Russia's there with their S-300 and 400s. That's their backdoor, their ally. It's not going to happen, and it didn't. In fact, it's looking like the U.S. is going to pull 100% out of Syria. I never thought that war was going to go, and it didn't, thankfully. But it looks like something's going to happen in North Korea. Good or bad, you and I and everyone we care about had best be prepared. Think about what's being said. Watch Trump again and listen to what he's talking about and compare it to what you know in your head. Right? Oh, and I said I would get back to this. State sponsors of terrorism. How about when a country lobs bombs trying to kill its enemies and takes out weddings and civic functions, public places, huge amounts of collateral damage of innocent lives of any national origin, not just U.S. That's wrong, isn't it? Obama used drone strikes and took out numerous civilians. Innocents, women, children, and men who were not the enemy. If someone did that here in the United States, we would definitely call that a state-sponsored act of terrorism if another government did it. We don't take very highly to anyone killing Americans, here or abroad. Yet our government, through its agents, have done it way too much. And it hurts me in the heart. And it hurts my head, too, to think about the fact that they don't have any problem doing that and then justifying it. You see, I don't want my family, my friends, my countrymen, my servicemen to be cannon fodder because someone else wants to play a political game, because someone stands to make billions and trillions of dollars. I don't like a small price tag being put on me so that someone else can cash in. And I don't like them doing it with anyone else either. Too many of our brothers, our fathers, our sons have died in order to enrich others. And I don't like to see it happening yet again. And I hope it doesn't. But it looks like we're going to. So get ready. Get prepared now. I'm John. I'm the host of the Prepared Mind channel here on Patreon. Right? And I've got a lot more to tell you. Come tomorrow. I'm going to tell you all about why you need to be prepared and what it means to you. You guys be cool. Always faithful. Right? To what's right. That's why I say it. I'm faithful to what is right. Doing the right thing even when no one's looking. Semper Fi. And Godspeed to you all.
Playtime is over. Get your Prepared Mind merchandise at thepreparedmind.club. Help keep free speech free and spread the word about the need to prep.